Okay, so in reality, in order to continue to exist in reality, every animal on this planet, whether it's a bacteria or an insect or a reptile or a mammal or a human being, in order to continue to exist in reality, every animal should honor their relationship with God as manifest in reality by avoiding that which destroys them. And parasites destroy us. Okay, let's look at the definition in the dictionary here. In Collins Dictionary, what is a parasite? All right. An animal or plant that lives in or on the host from which it obtains nourishment. The host does not benefit from the association and is often harmed by it. Definition number 2, a person who habitually lives at the expense of others, a sponger. One who lives at another's expense. That's the definition in the English language of a parasite. So, let's think about that. There are starving people in the world. There are starving people in Malawi. Sure, definitely there are going to be starving people in Malawi. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. Malawi is a mess. There is suffering there. There are definitely starving children in Malawi. That is reasonable to assume. Whether or not the people in your village are starving, I'm not sure. When I do research online, I see that most people in Malawi are involved in subsistence farming, and they mostly suffer food insecurity when there are droughts and crop failures. I don't know the circumstances, but it doesn't matter in terms of whether or not you would be a parasite to me or to my friends. If you are getting material resources from us in the terms of money that make it harder for us to obtain secure territory for our families, okay? I have to make sure that with my skills and my abilities, I acquire land for my children and grandchildren. I have more money in my bank account than you for sure, definitely. In terms of this abstraction we call money, I have more money. But I don't have any fixed piece of land that I own. And most of my friends don't own land or houses either. We temporarily have some money in our bank accounts from our complicated social structures that we have here in the Americas. But most of us don't even own homes or land. And our future is unclear. My adaptive duty to my existence and the existence of my daughter, Jamila, is to focus my efforts and my time and my resources on making sure that Jamila has a house and has land, and hopefully has land that can produce some food and has some water, so that her existence in the future and the existence of my grandchildren is more secure. And if I or my friends are taking resources from our families to send it to children in Africa who don't seem to be able to do anything for us, what can they do for us? They don't even speak English. They're not here. They're far away. They can't do almost any measurable good for us in Malawi. Those children are useless to us in terms of our survival. And if we are to take bread off of our children's table and throw it across the ocean to Malawi through these complicated financial systems that we have in the world these days, then we are feeding parasites living off of us, sponging off of us, who do us no good, and they harm us by taking resources away from us that we need for our survival and the survival of our children and grandchildren. That is how you and the children in your village in Malawi can, by biological definition in the English language, be parasites. Not because you're mean, not because you have bad intentions. It doesn't matter what you think in your brain or feel in your emotions. That's irrelevant. The definition of a parasite has nothing to do with whether you're lying or not. The definition of a parasite has nothing to do with how you feel. The facts don't care about your feelings, as one famous controversial media figure in the United States loves to say. But I agree. I don't agree with everything he says, but I do agree with that. The facts don't care about our feelings, because that goes back to the Garden of Eden. I do not want to pretend that we are gods and that human suffering is always wrong, human death is always wrong, and that taking away human suffering is right and good. That's not true. The only way to take away all human suffering in the world is to help everybody die as quickly as possible. Then there will be no more human suffering ever again. If we all just create some kind of global Jonestown experience for ourselves, and we all just drink the poison Kool-Aid or the hemlock with Socrates, and we all release ourselves from these bodies, these physical bodies in this world, then we will never suffer again. I mean, there are even our religions that go on for thousands of years about escaping these bodies, not just the cult in Jonestown with that megalomaniacal person many years ago, but also in India, the Jains. They have a ritual they call Salekana. And in the ritual of Salekana, they say, well, we need to make sure that we detach ourselves from everything we care about in this life so that we can escape these bodies, because they understand that reality is, as long as we are in human bodies, part of the deal of life is we all have to suffer, and that occasionally includes starvation and death. Death isn't always by starvation, but every human who has ever lived dies at some point, and occasionally that's by starvation. So the Jains say, no. The Jains in India, we need to stop being reincarnated, being born again and again into these physical bodies where all we do is suffering. This is a hell, or at best a purgatory, this planet. Let's get out of this prison planet. A lot of the Greeks thought this too, that we need to get out of this planet where we're doomed to suffer as long as we're in these bodies. And so a lot of the Jains will voluntarily start starving themselves to death as a way of releasing all of their attachment to this physical world and these physical bodies. And many older Jains, and occasionally some younger ones, will perform this ritual where they go into a monastery and they eat less and less food under supervision of a priest in their religion, and then they will intentionally start starving themselves to death. Very slowly, so they can emotionally detach, so they can practice not caring about anything, not even food. Because they don't want to be born again. They're afraid if they die too easily, they'll be born again. And so they want to detach. And then after they practice starving for a long, long time, they can go sometimes a whole month without eating, and they still don't die. They're extremely skinny. They're just skin and bones. And I even saw a video in a graduate class about religion, about this old woman practicing Salekana, where she then stopped drinking water. And women gathered around her to say prayers and pass her spirit on to the next life. And she died after about a week of not drinking water. On purpose. Because the deal of life in these physical bodies is we all must suffer. So I'm not going to participate in just trying to take away people's suffering just because they're hungry children. That makes no sense.